Hi, thanks for watching Garden Hands. This is our crew for collecting today, and we're going to have a lot of fun. See you in a bit.
See ya.
Bye!
Awesome.
We have another beautiful day for sap collecting. We have 9 helpers in the woods with us today, ranging from age 7 to 65, and everyone is enjoying it. The sap is very nice and clear, and the trails are getting a little bit muddier as the frost is leaving the ground. But it's always a good day in the woods. We have about 400 taps and buckets, and what we're using a Kubota for picking up our sap collection, and it's working great. We have a little step up that really helps anyone that's a little bit shorter reach the storage tank, and it works well when you have multiple people picking up pails. And if you're 6'8", you don't even need a step, but he still uses it.
Yeah.
So how the process works is the spile, the sap runs down the spile. It gets collected in a bucket, whether it's a plastic bucket and it's a food grade bucket, or one of our metal aluminum buckets. They all have covers that help keep little bark out of the sap. We dump the buckets, or take the buckets off the tree and dump them into 5-gallon pails, and then we wait for the Kubota to kind of drive by and pour those pails into the storage container on the Kubota. The Kubota storage container holds 100 gallons, and when that is filled up, they drive it to the sugar shack and they unload it and store it in the bulk tank. And then we come back to the woods and pick up where we left off. We generally pick up all of the pails on the days that we're picking sap up, whether they have an inch in the pail or that they're full. When picking up the pails in the woods, it can range in time from anywhere from 2 hours to sometimes 5 hours, depending upon how full and how many loads we have to bring back to the sugar shack. Generally, when I'm walking in the woods picking up pails, I usually put on about 13,000 steps.
This is our last day of collecting. We're kind of full. We've made as much as we want to make, and this is the last load that we picked up. So it's going to rain in a couple of days, and we're just thinking we'll get done collecting what we have today, which we did, and then we've got 8 or 10 hours of boiling, kind of give or take anyway, and bottling or putting it in a barrel. So we're going to do that, and then if it does rain, we're not caught in the rain trying to pick things up, and it's going to get warm enough, it probably isn't going to run, so we're getting done. Like I said, this is the last load. When we come in, we kind of got a cluster of hoses around here right now. We just started using an RO this year, and we don't have it plumbed up exactly how it should be. It works, but it isn't. It's a little bit busy around here. So this is just a half a load. We come in and hook it up and hit this valve, and so I've got my valves the right way so that we'll just pump this into the tank, and then we'll let the RO run some more on it to concentrate it down a little bit tonight while we're boiling here. So on our setup here, this year we went to a electric motor that we got at a farm auction or a dairy auction. That's just a milk pump motor, and it's got a sock in it or a filter right by the motor, and then we can pump it into our bulk tank, or we can pump it into our, what I call the head tank there. And that's worked out really nice, that electric motor. That's pretty sweet. And we put it on a cart, so and there's a drain at the bottom of it, so at night we just it's just a little 3/8 line with a petcock on it, and we can drain that pump out and not worry about it freezing, but we do pull it in to the shack at night. That runs on 220, so you hit a switch and it goes. And it's quick. It'll dump this tank out in about 4 minutes, 100 gallons in 4 or 5 minutes. So once we get it into that, then we'll turn the RO on. The RO will run, and that'll discharge about 20 gallons an hour of clear water, and that's what we boil, is 20 gallons an hour. So every hour that runs is an hour less of boiling. The other night we brought in 650 gallons of sap, and that ran for, I think, about 8 hours. So by midnight we had gotten rid of 200 gallons of water, and we were down to where by 4 o'clock in the morning we could quit boiling. So we were ready for the next day. But without that, we would have had 8 more hours of boiling before we got caught up. So it's as simple as that. That's the electric pump part of it works awfully nice. So that's how simple it is. We unhook the one hose, the green hose that was going here, hook it on inside. There's another filter. There's 2 more filters inside that take out some more things if there's anything in it. But this first filter, this sock in here, takes out pretty much everything. So we unhook that hose and move it in there and open the valve here. All right, let it rip. Turn the switch on, and it's putting sap into our head tank now, and that holds like 60 gallons, which is 3 hours of boiling for us. So we know if we fill that, we know we have 6 or 3 hours to boil, and we know when we have to quit firing or keep firing. So we're down to 100 and, what are we down to? About 150 to 200 gallons of sap to boil, and then we'll be done for the season here. We pull our spiles a little early, but we have enough. We don't sell that much. Most of it's used to give away to neighbors and friends, and we don't need that much sap. And another week it'll be time to get in the field, and I'd just as soon get ready to get in the field and be a little bit timely there too. So anyway, we'll go inside and see what we do in here. So we've got some sap in the bulk tank, and that gets pumped in via this green hose here up to our tank up here, and that we call that the head tank because it's up above the evaporator, I guess. But this will feed gravity into the float box. This holds 65 gallons, which is 3 hours of boiling for us. So when we've got it in here, we've got measurements, so we kind of know when we need to stop firing so we don't fire too long and have trouble with the pan getting low. Right now we're drawing some off. When it gets up to 7, we draw it off. So 7 is 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. We check it with our hydrometer, which isn't here right now, but somebody will get it. So right now we're boiling, or this is running, and it's at 7. Actually it's at 8 right now, so we're a little bit thick, but we can correct that back at the stove. So I'll set this off, and just to check, every other time that we draw some off, we check with a hydrometer too, just to make sure. So we'll check it with a hydrometer. This has 2 red lines on it. Right now this is floating at about 1 brick above what we need to be, so we'll add some sap when we get done to this just to bring it down a little bit. When we get done checking with our hydrometer, I usually leave it inside here so it stays warm, so we don't have cold or hot sap running against a cold hydrometer. So from our head tank, it travels down this blue tube, which we can turn off if we need to. We can disconnect it here if we need to for some reason, into the float box, which is a stainless steel float connected to an arm and up against a washer to shut the flow of the sap off going into our flue pan. So this is our sap, or our flue pan float box. This is our syrup pan float box, because the level of this is considerably lower than what the level is here. The level here is up about this high, and the level down here is about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches deep in our syrup pan. So this float box controls this one. Comes out of the sap pan here, goes into the sap or syrup float box, and back into the syrup float box at that point there. This is our syrup pan. This is the last pan that it comes in on this side and around and comes out on this side. And there is a difference in the way the foam or the bubbles look. These have a little more of a sheen, I would say. And if you get good at making maple syrup, the old guys can do it by putting a spatula in or something that it'll drip off of, and they can see how it sheets off of the spatula or spoon to see whether it's ready. We're not that good. We use a thermometer. So another way, right now it's down at about 5.5. Another way that you can thin the syrup down is to just take some out early. If you've been drawing off for 3 or 4 minutes and it's at 8 degrees instead of 7, you can draw off for a couple more minutes when it gets down a little bit below 7 and bring your average down. If you bring your average down a little bit too much, when we filter it the second time when we're bottling, we'll just run it on the stove a little bit more and boil some on the stove. So on the other side of the pan is our sight gauge. This is the level of the sap in here. I don't know for sure where the flues are about 3/4 of an inch covered. So right here, right about here would be the top of our flues on this pan. So this gives you an idea. At night when we get all done and we shut this down, we'll raise this level up to about, where are we at? About there. So we'll put almost 2 inches of sap into this pan when we shut it down at night. And then we'll bring our covers. These are just a couple of aluminum covers that we had bent that fit right over the pans, over each of the pans. And then we'll vent those on the edge a little bit. And this just keeps anything out that would drift in or something that would fall down accidentally into it. But we vent them so that the steam can keep rolling off, because this will stay warm for quite a while. We'll let the fire go down until it's just some embers, and then we know we're safe to leave and don't have to stay here too long. This pan can also, this is a reversible pan, so we can take off from this side to control it and to exit into the syrup pan, and the syrup pan can be turned around. So all this can be reversed. We've never done that. We have 2 syrup pans, so we'll clean this if you have a long day of boiling, kind of every 400 or 500 gallons of sap that goes through it. This year we have changed it, and that's been real nice. Right now we've run it for 2 days because it's the last day, and there's a lot of niter in it. It needs to be cleaned, but we can make it without changing this one. This is a 2x6, 2 feet wide, 6 feet long. This is a CDL, which we bought from Roth Syrup Supply. I think that's what you say it is, in Cadott. And we like it. It's been real good. It's the right size for us. We wouldn't want one any smaller, but if you get any bigger, then you start tapping too many trees too. So this has been a good one. So this year when we started, we had this portion filled up with firewood, and we had some over there too. We had it filled about to here, so it's 5 feet to there. So we're 5 feet tall, and we had 3 rows of kind of 16-inch wood. So it'd be the width of a face or of a full cord, and 8 feet long. So we used up, not quite, we'll have this used up maybe by tomorrow when we get done. So we'd have 1 cord used up, and at that time we'll have, what do we have made? I can't remember. Syrup, yeah.
Syrup.
We made syrup. So by tomorrow when we get done, we'll have used up just a little over a full cord to make 47, 48 gallons. I think that conversion ratio of wood to maple syrup is a pretty decent conversion of a full cord of wood or a little bit over that. And the majority of it was pine. So it's pretty light, but it's quick. We like it to make that amount of maple syrup. So it doesn't take that much wood. It's really pretty good. And maybe it's the pan that we use too. Or maybe it's just the guy doing it. The first year that we ran this, we didn't have a steam hood on it. And it worked just fine. You did notice how much steam was going against the ceiling, and the boards kind of fit a little bit tighter. Now it doesn't do that. So we found this on Craigslist for $100. So this was just fashioned out of the same tin they use in ductwork. And it just happened that it fit our size of a pan. And then when we got back home, the guy that does most of the work here, we just took some PVC pipe and split it and made a trough underneath it because it would leak a little or drip a little bit of water. And then we have it going over to a corner, and we kind of got it so it's all lowered over to that corner, and it drains over there. And it does work real well. It gets the steam up to the top, up into our cupola. We added 1 more stack to it. I think it had 1 when we got it, and we added another one. And it seems to get all the steam going up. So it's kind of nice to have the steam. It smells nice, but yet it's nice to get it going up and out of here. So this is the last filtering that we're going to do this year of 2022. This is our filter, and this is one of the last batches that we've done on the evaporator. So this is the last one going in. So our filter is fairly simple. It's this stainless canister that has filter papers up. They're at this level right here. This piece unclamps. I got some syrup in it, so we can't take it off right now, but there's an Orlon filter and then 3 finer or paper filters, and that's clamped down. And this is a vacuum cleaner hose that's screwed into this valve here. So we'll pour syrup in here, and when these are clean, the syrup will run through rather quick. When it gets, I suppose, a couple of gallons through it, it'll slow up a little bit because you've got some niter in there and a little bit of the other things that have to be filtered out. So then we'll use the vacuum, and that vacuum goes in just below this. So the papers are here, the vacuum port is right here, and then there's an elbow inside so the syrup can't go back out unless you fill it too full. So we'll put syrup in here and turn on the vacuum, and our bottom valve has to be shut then. And this will create a vacuum in there, and it'll draw that syrup down extremely fast. So we'll dump some in now, and then we'll turn on the vacuum to show you how it works. So right now the top is right here with syrup. And it's empty. So now it's empty. So I don't know what that took. We can look on our timer there, but it might have taken all of 20 seconds to draw down about 1/3 of this pot. Seems like there's a right speed to this to run it. I'd say the only downside to this is that you have to lift that pot up a little bit higher than if you were, like a lot of people will have a big flat pan and they might even have a heater in it. This doesn't have a heater in it. It'd be nice if it had a sight gauge so you knew how full you were getting it. But for what we do, it works real well. It's quick. It does a very good job of filtering. We're happy that way. And then the bottom of this is tapered just a little bit so that it drains out real well. There's very little, maybe a cap full left when we're all done with this, so that works out good. We have it sitting on some blocks here just so it won't slide around when we're pouring. If you'd happen to bump something, it's a little more stable then. And that's kind of a good thing. We're filling our barrel. I think we had about 40 gallons, didn't we? I think that's what it was. So we've got a little bit left, and we'll fill a barrel, and then that'll go to a place like Roth's or Pittman's or whoever's buying syrup. And it's a small barrel, 15 gallons about. So nice way to end the season. We don't have to have a certain number of jars, or we can put it in a barrel and sell it. Use it for credit on supplies that we buy for next year, some more glass. When we're filtering, we'll generally accumulate in our pots. We've got quite a few kettles, pots, whatever you want to call these, and we'll accumulate 5 gallons, 5 to 10 gallons at a time. So that's probably a day and a half or 2 days of boiling for us. And we'll get those accumulated ahead of time, and then we'll just stand and heat those and do this for a day, or do this one time, and then a couple of days we won't have to do it. And in the meantime, we'll take this home and get this clean, rinsed, and washed out real good. And the paper filters, we reuse those. Those are pretty easy to clean with hot water. We turn our water heater up at this time of year to make sure that the water's good and hot in the sink. So we'll clean the filters and clean this piece that we use here, and clean all our pots. It's a lot of cleaning, it seems, but it makes it easy when you come back. You don't have stuff that's all sticky, and it's just easier to use. So this will get cleaned every 2 days. Some more in there than I thought. When we do our boiling or our heating up for our filter process, and we heat it to 190 degrees, and that's warm enough for making your lids seal on your jars, and it's warm enough to keep in a barrel. If we wrap this with a couple of blankets and then we cap it as soon as we're done putting syrup in it, and then that'll keep real good. Last year when we took it over in I think it was September, October, and it was just fine inside. It kept real well. So that's basically how we do our filtering. It's fairly simple, and it works real well for us. We haven't had any trouble with niter or sugar. I guess the sugar in the bottom of the jars is because we have it too thick, but we don't have trouble with niter, and the syrup is very clear always. It doesn't seem to be cloudy. So here's our two samples that we had done, one on the 22nd of March and one from today. So they didn't change color much. And we're pulling our taps now because we have enough. So obviously if we would keep going, it would get a little bit darker, but this doesn't show much difference. We didn't have a real light amber, but this is awful good syrup, I guess. It's good, but it just shows you the difference in about 2 weeks, of running. We didn't have very much that ran the first of those 2 weeks, but the last 3 days we did have quite a bit. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed our tapping season, our maple syrup season, and we look forward to having you come back again next year to watch. But in the meantime, you can watch us start our gardening and start our flowers and do a couple little projects that we have throughout the year. And thanks again. Remember to hit our like button. Ask questions. We'd love to answer them, and we'll try our best to answer them in a good way. And subscribe. Thanks again.